suggestion to Jake Johnson, owner of Jake's Diner on State Street, to let me start writing about his life. I've been a frequent customer of the diner, harking back to the day when it was Monica's. I've always been fascinated by people's backstories. You know, the stories that sometimes we want to tell about ourselves, but are often reluctant to share. The stories that we hope might lend some encouragement to others who've had similar experiences. Or perhaps we just don't want our life stories to evaporate into thin air after we pass. Jake and I started this project 2 years ago, right, Jake? Maybe longer. I thought it would be finished within 6 months. Then life happened. COVID hit, and we were all scrambling to get into our caves and stay put. And for a time period, Jake's Diner was closed. Then other life events. Jake has been ever patient with my long-time extension. Most of the writing has occurred at the diner. Special thanks to his fiancée, Nikki, along with the regulars at the diner. So the title of this is, Why Are We Still Here? Or in other words, why aren't we dead? Wow. That sound invigorating? Yeah. All right, okay. This is a very serious discussion because, let's face it, most of us don't like talking about death. And why we have been spared and are still on this earth, this subject is not an easy one. Jake, in a rare moment when he can actually spare 5 minutes, sits down and talks. We both are chowing down on breakfast at the diner while we are having this delicate conversation. I have a plate of 2 Sunnyside eggs, ham, home fries, white toast with butter and coffee. Jake has eggs, but never toast. Never, ever toast. So I asked this to Jake in a straightforward manner. Jake, why do you think we're still here on this earth? And Jake's response in a matter-of-fact voice, I believe it's all up to God. I don't have a choice in this matter. God placed us here and gave us life. You just have to go with it and make the best of it. Jake, you've experienced an incredible amount of losses. I know this is sensitive and hard, but would you list all the people you've lost, with some of them in the last 12 months? Jake sucks in his breath, reaches for some napkins, wipes his eyes, and begins. All 3 of my uncles have passed. My dad, my aunt, my dad's sister, my other aunts, my cousin Gary, 3 friends, Bill Cornish. Yeah, Jake says, death is scary. After all that's happened and all the people I have lost, I think about it in the morning when I wake up and in the evening before I go to sleep. Yeah. But we don't know what to expect when we die. And who the heck wants to die? Seriously, I'm going to fight it all the way. Look, I'm going to interrupt you, Jake, because as you know, I had a near-death experience. You remember when I was in the hospital a year ago with that infection from an abscessed tooth? The angel of death came to visit me with a helper, and I knew that I could make the choice to go back with him to heaven if I really wanted to. I was given a choice to live or die. Yeah, of course I remember how he almost died. One of my uncles was convinced that he had experienced seeing people who had died when he had a heart attack. He also thinks that he was talking to them, but I'm not so sure of that. Jake's interrupted with a phone call from one of his vendors. The heartbeat of the diner is surrounded with necessary pauses. Jake listens intently to what's being asked and then responds to the call with, hey, let me check. Then a shout out with, Nikki, how are we doing for coffee? Nikki responds with a firm and confident, we're doing good. That conversation ends, but another one begins with Jake turning his head to observe his right-hand grill guy walking towards the coffee machine. Hey, Daryl, you don't have a lot to do. Remember, we're closed tomorrow. Daryl then nods his head in agreement and makes his way back to the land of the grill. Within a flash of maybe 3 minutes, 4 conversations have taken place in the diner. Timing is everything. To 1 minute of time is precious. 3 minutes can turn into a lifetime. And Jake does not overlook anything, and I swear he has the eyes of an eagle, swooping over every corner of the diner. I'm reluctant to interrupt, but hey, I got a story to write about why the hell we're still here. All right, so Jake, getting back to my near miss with death and the fact that I made the decision to live, I'm convinced that's why I'm still here, is that I have more living to live and more stories to share. How about you, Jake? Are there still stories you want to live and share? Yeah, I do. But I also have a theory about health, and a lot of it's based on growing up with Southerners. I heard these stories from guys who were in their 70s. A lot of their food was slop, along with living in huts with scrap metal roofs and their gardens sprayed with pesticides. And often there would be a guy coming around with a pig bucket shouting, "I got feet and tails and maybe one head today. Any takers?" I'm quietly calculating and sifting through the fact that all of this is a recipe for incubating, at best, marginal health. Jake then slips in the observation that white people like their fish fillet, whereas that was not the case with his growing up experiences. He delivers this fact with a hint of sarcasm towards the need for the fish to be divine. And the best part of the conversation comes next, because it includes Jake's remembrance of a day spent with his great-grandparents from his mother's side. I was about 5 years old and a real hyper kid, and I mean hyper. My great-grandparents lived in South Carolina, and my great-grandmother was sitting in a chair and spitting tobacco and reached out to me with, "Hey boy, come over to see me." I could feel the wrinkles in her hand while she asked me if I wanted to take a ride with my great-grandfather to the Piggly Wiggly store. And of course, this was a huge treat. My great-grandfather smoked a pipe with Red Man tobacco to when we got to the store, I grabbed a bag and handed it to him. And he smiled, but I evidently had been paying attention to one of his favorite shrieks. And then he asked if I liked peanuts, and of course I said yes. Well, then just follow me. He was a peanut farmer, so he told me to fill my pockets with as many as I wanted, so I did. And the sun was shining on those peanuts as we sat down in the field. So I always have that lasting memory of eating hot, salty peanuts with my great-grandmother. For a couple of moments, I held back some tears as I feel and see this precious memory that recalled. And I steadied my voice before I end our conversation about why are we still here with Jake. I think you have a lot more stories to share, and maybe, just maybe, that's why you are still here.
All right. Very nice. And Jake is having a little sit back there, time to incognito right there, Miss Jake. And he